David here with Figboot on Pens, back again with another fountain pen review. One of the great things about going to large pen shows like the recent DC show is the chance to get to meet face-to-face with folks that you've only spoken to online. One of the people I was glad to have spent some time with at the DC show was Hiran Kanekahara, who is the gentleman behind the Indian brand Magna Carta. I reviewed a couple of pens from Magna Carta, but it was nice to finally meet up with Hiran in person and talk shop a little bit. One of the cool things that Magna Carta has done recently is release their number 8 size nib, which you can currently find on the Edison Collier Grande, which I reviewed a couple of weeks ago and is one of my favorite recent acquisitions. But what I have for you today is their latest pen release, which is something from their Libertatum collection. It has a fairly unique filling system, and this line was introduced at the DC show. What I'm going to do today is go over the parts and features of the Libertatum, talk about what I care for and what I don't care for about it. I'll show some measurements, size comparisons, and provide a writing sample. Thanks go out to Magna Carta for providing this pen for review. The Libertatum collection is comprised of 3 different models and 3 different color combinations, but each color combination is not available with each model. The 3 different models are the Baron, which is a cartridge converter pen with a number 8 nib, and the ends are slightly pointed. Then there is the Crown, which has a number 6 nib, a pneumatic filler, and the ends are flat. And finally, there is the Lord, which is a cartridge converter with a number 8 nib, and the ends are rounded. There are 3 different color combinations of the layered resin, each of which are named for years associated with the Magna Carta. Now, just as a bit of a refresher, the Magna Carta is a royal charter of rights which promised the protection of church rights and protection from illegal imprisonment and access to swift justice and other rights. There were a few different versions of this document, with the larger, more in-detailed version called the Magna Carta Libertatum, which translates from Latin to the Great Charter of Liberties. The original document was actually written in Latin. So, in regard to the color variations of this pen, there is the 1215, which is red and golden. 1215 is the year the Magna Carta was signed by King John of England, the gold denoting the crown, and the red representing the Council of 25 Barons who were the signatories. Then there is the 1225, which is brown and golden, and named to commemorate the year when the charter was reissued. Again, with the gold denoting the royal patronage, and the brown signifying the good intentions of the king. Brown is a color which often symbolizes resilience and dependability and security and safety. Then finally there is the 1297, which is gray and white, which marks the year when the Magna Carta became part of England's statute law. Again, the gold represents the crown, and according to the company, the gray and white symbolizes the liberties held by all men. The pen arrives in this box, and inside we have the inner box, and the top just comes off, and inside we have the pen. This is the Crown series in the 1297 gray and white material. This layered resin has a bit of arco-celluloid look to it, especially in the brown and red colors. With this gray and white, you can really get a good look at the different layers. Then on top and the bottom of the pen, you really get that interesting look through a number of layers. This material has been developed in-house and has been named Magna Arc. I've always loved this look in Arco, and I feel that this material pulls off that look as well for this series of pens. Let's take a look at the top of the cap. It is flat. I do like how you get a nice cross-section of the material there. Then we have the clip. It is 14 karat gold-plated metal and has a wheeled end. I'm always a sucker for a wheeled clip. I just think they look cool, and this one functions well in materials of varying thicknesses. The cap angles up for the first inch or so before straightening out. At the end of the cap, there are dual gold-plated bands, and then an angled step down to the barrel. On the barrel, it is engraved with the name Magna Carta. Since the material on these pens will vary a bit, I know it would be really tough to do so, but I wish the engraving was a bit more centered in regard to the patterning on the material. The barrel is straight for about 1.5 inches before tapering down at an even angle until you reach a blind cap, and the end of that blind cap is flat. In regard to the blind cap, I wish the material lined up a little bit better when it was closed. It's not the biggest issue, but alignment issues like that are one of the small things that I think really makes a difference between a decent pen and an excellent one, in my opinion. I'll show you what's underneath this blind cap here in a moment. The cap twists off in just under 3 rotations. I will say that when capping this pen, I have experienced a few issues of cross-threading. Typically when I'm trying to kind of cap the pen rather quickly and insert it at a bit of an angle, it's not very forgiving. When you do that, the threads aren't as forgiving, but if you make sure to have everything a bit more aligned when you cap the pen, the issue is minimized. Once you have removed the cap, underneath is Magna Carta's in-house number 6 gold-plated nib engraved with the company logo. The nib is available in either fine, medium, or broad. While I have been pleased with how this nib writes, it's a bit tough to see here, but the tipping is cut fairly off-center. And then here's a look at the ebonite feed. The section simply angles up, then you have a step up to the threads and a slightly larger step up to the remainder of the barrel. Even though this is devoid of any flare or concave design, I am able to maintain a decent grip without finding my grip slipping, causing adjustments. The cap does post, and it does post securely. This is a fairly large pen, and I can't say I'm too fond of the overall looks of the pen when it's posted. While the cap isn't overly heavy, I do find it throws off the balance of the pen a bit, so I prefer to use this pen unposted, and it's plenty long enough to do so. As I mentioned earlier, this is a pneumatic filler. In all of my time doing reviews, I have only reviewed 2 other pneumatic fillers that I can recall. Bonus points if in the comments below you can name the 2. I had thought there was only one other one, but then I recalled another one. With a pneumatic filler, you remove the blind cap, and you can see here there's this little knob. On the end of the knob, there is a small hole. What you do is you pull this out, and then you place a finger over the hole, and you insert the nib into the ink, and you press down. And by pressing down, it will create a vacuum inside the pen, crushing the interior sac. When you remove your finger, you will hear the air escape from the pen. Let me go ahead and just test that. You can hear that little puff of air here. There you go. And that when you release that, then the interior sac expands back to its normal shape and sucks up ink. It's a neat little system. Something that is interesting about this pen is that the section is not glued together. You can remove it for easy access to the sac. Over many years of use, there is a potential need to replace the sac, and having access to it like this makes it very easy to do. Also, don't be alarmed, the sac has some talcum powder on it, or something similar to talcum powder. That is used to help reduce wear and tear on the sac as it's compressed and expanded and is completely normal. During the writing sample, I'll ink this pen up and show you how the filling system operates. The Magna Carta Libertatum Crown Series is available from the Magna Carta website, as well as a few select retailers, and has a retail price of $400. The other 2 models in the series are priced a bit lower. The Baron series is $350 and the Lord series is $375. There was a lot I like about this pen. I love the size and the weight of the pen in my hand. It just feels like a very solid and quality pen. I really love the look of the Magna Arco. It's a unique material that I would love to see in other pens. There is some room for improvement with the off-center tines and the occasional cross-threading and the alignment of the blind cap, and those are things that I wouldn't like to see on a $400 pen, but I haven't found any of those things to really affect the performance of this specific pen. I feel the $400 price is a bit on the high side in regard to a value proposition for the pen, but it's not completely out of line for a brand new pen with some incredibly unique and quality material. Some of Magna Carta's previous pens have been a little bit hit or miss in regard to aligning with my personal tastes, but this model here checks a lot of the right boxes for me, and I'm looking forward to seeing what other new creations they come out with. Okay, now it is time for some measurements, size comparisons. I'll show you how to ink up a pneumatic filler and provide a writing sample. So here we go with some size comparisons for the Magna Carta Libertatum. Again, this is the Crown series. I just really like that material. Like I said, it has an Arco look to it in a resin, which I think is a really cool look. In speaking of Arco, I thought I'd just compare it to a couple of Arco pens. This is the ASC Bologna Extra Arco. You can see it's a rather large pen. And then here it is with an Omas My Lord. And then finally, here is a pen from Wall Eversharp, which is their Deco Band, and this is in a rose ebonite. In regard to a couple of other pens, here it is with a Lamy Safari and a Montegrappa. And then here it is finally with a Diplomat Elux. In regard to some uncapped comparisons, here it is with that Safari. This is the Omas My Lord. And then finally the Montegrappa. I mentioned that I would show you how to fill up this pneumatic filler. So let's go ahead and take off this blind cap. And the ink we're going to be using today is one of my favorites, which is Diamine Pumpkin. We'll see how this works on camera, how this looks. You extend this back. It doesn't extend that far. And you're just going to hold your finger over it, press it down, and then release the vacuum. So let's go ahead and insert this, and we'll see how this works with one hand. And then let it go and let it sit for a second. And then let's go ahead and actually wipe this off. You can see here that it got a little bit in the cracks. You might need to use more of a wet towel. Same with a little bit of staining there. Let's see if we just wet that a little bit. It comes off. So yeah, you're going to need to do that. And then let's see what it looked like in the fill. You can see here that it got maybe about halfway. So you might need to do a couple of fills in order to actually fill this up completely. Okay, I'm back. I was not pleased with the staining that was on here after I inked the pen. I thought that it should have come off a little bit easier, so I wanted to see if it was an issue with the pen or an issue with the ink. And so I went off and I cleaned it with some water, and it actually required some water and a little bit of soap to get it down to where I felt it was better, which was a little bit more of an effort that I would want whenever inking this particular pen. Okay, here we go with the writing sample for the Magna Carta. And this is the Libertatum. And this is a medium stainless steel nib. And the ink I'm using here, as you saw before, is Diamine Pumpkin. This is what the ink looks like. It's one of my favorite oranges. In regard to other pumpkin inks, this is Ferris Wheel Press Pumpkin Patch. And then here is Papier Plume's Bloody Pumpkin. And here we go with the rest of the writing sample. I do find that this nib is pleasant, even though, like I showed in the review, that it's cut off center a little bit. But I do find that I don't find it to be scratchy. You can get a decent amount of line variation out of here, and it writes very pleasant. In regard to ink flow, I think it's on the higher side. It feels rather wet. And in regard to some reverse writing, it performs nicely as well. And then finally, in regard to some fast writing, the feed keeps up just fine. So there we have the Magna Carta Libertatum. I think it's an interesting addition to the Magna Carta lineup. I think there's some room for improvement on a few different things, but overall, I really love the looks of this material and would love to see it in some other pens. Okay, until next time, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you later.